Don't worry, Paul. You're not going to melt being in Baton Rouge. I promise you. You'll be whole.
The only silver lining about being here is that in the city name, it includes one of my favorite colors. Red. From Tiger Stadium in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. This is the Sports Report.
Hello again, everybody. I'm Chris. That's Paul. We're here still in Baton Rouge for, ironically, the Ole Miss Rebels season preview. Paul?
Why we're in Baton Rouge, I'll never know. This was your idea.
It was my idea. We were due for a road trip.
When we made one, and in fact, in my case, I'm in enemy territory. But that's okay. We're previewing my team.
Yes, we are.
Last week, or last time we were on, we previewed the LSU Tigers.
Mm-hmm. That was a fun preview. It was good to go over my Tigers schedule. Now let's talk about your boys in blue. Y'all start off in Atlanta.
In Atlanta.
Against the always dangerous Boise Broncos.
See, Ole Miss is going to be in Atlanta one way or another this season. We just are going to open it up in a neutral site game, the Chick-fil-A Kickoff Classic on Thursday night, August the 28th, against a very much depleted Boise State football team. Chris Peterson no longer there. He's at the University of Washington. Ole Miss is going to come into the season, come into that game and come into the season with 16 returning starters, 10 of them on defense.
Yep, y'all are bringing back a lot of experience, and all that youth that played so well for you guys last year, they're all coming back.
And they're all sophomores, which means there's a lot of excitement in the air in Oxford, Mississippi.
Bo Wallace is a great quarterback. He's been leading Ole Miss for a good couple seasons now, and he's seen the ins and outs of this league. And he has the physical tools and the mental tools to lead you guys to Atlanta for the first time for an SEC championship game. But can he remain mistake-free this season? He's always had that one hiccup, and heartbreakingly enough, it was in the Egg Bowl last year, that fumble on the 2-yard line.
He tried to make a play, and it didn't work. You know,
to his credit, the play was there.
Oh, it was there.
I mean, he was there. He just played Butterfingers on the football.
And it happens, but you know what? I think the silver lining there is he's went ahead, he learned from his mistakes. He had a great performance against Georgia Tech in the Music City Bowl.
He did.
Won the Music City Bowl. He's coming into this season winning 2 consecutive bowl games at quarterback, and he's got a plethora of talent. You know, only 6 offensive starters returning, and the question mark for the Rebels is on the offensive line. 2 returning starters on the offensive line, Justin Bell and Laramie Tunsil.
Right, so now the Tigers and Ole Miss both have, I guess, the problem or the inconvenience of youth on offense. I would rather have youth at the skill positions, because then that way I have vets on the offensive line protecting my quarterback. You guys, it's the opposite. Y'all have youth on the line, but y'all have experience in the skill positions. Do you think that could hurt you guys?
It could, considering how fast Hugh Freeze wants to play.
Yeah, he does.
He wants to play as fast as Oregon does.
Do you think he'll get to that speed eventually?
He can if he creates enough depth on the offensive line. Now, look, don't get us wrong. There is a lot of excitement with the players that we do have that could step up on the offensive line. There is a lot of youth on that line. But it's a lot of good youth and it's a lot of good talent.
Absolutely. It's not like Ole Miss would recruit bad players.
I mean, that's not that anybody would recruit bad players. The problem is they don't have a lot of that game experience, and I think in theory, if you want to be successful in the conference, you have to have you have to have experience on the offensive line. You don't have much of it there. That's going to be an issue. But when you have the skilled players like a Laquan Treadwell, like an Evan Ingram, and some other receivers and the running backs that we do have, the stable of running backs that we have coming back, that's going to help alleviate some things, but you still need to be able to give protection.
No more Dante Moncrief has gone on to the league, but freshman sensation last year, Laquan Treadwell, 72 catches, 600 yards, 8.5 yards a carry and 5 touchdowns. He could be that go-to guy for Wallace this year.
That's going to be your go-to receiver.
Absolutely.
But you are going to have Evan Ingram at tight end, who was a very important piece to the puzzle. He went down with injury later on in the season, and that kind of hurt us in the latter stages of the year because we started out great. We had that upset win in Austin against the Longhorns of Texas. which that game really started the downfall of Mac Brown.
It did.
But it allowed Ole Miss to start, I believe it was 3-0 at that point, which was the first time Ole Miss had started 3-0 since the late 70s. But then when Evan Ingram went down with injury, things started slowing down, but we were still competitive and we were still explosive on offense. Another neutral site game, but not really a neutral site game. Vanderbilt on the road in Nashville, but it's not on campus at Vanderbilt. It's at LP Field.
Well, that's very odd. Huh.
Last time Ole Miss was at LP Field, they won the Music City Bowl.
Yep.
Well, they open up at home September the 13th against the Raging Cajuns of Louisiana Lafayette.
I love the Cajuns, don't get me wrong, but I mean, y'all should handle UL pretty easily in that game.
Now, the Raging Cajuns are going to be probably one of the top 3 teams in the Sun Belt Conference, but no disrespect to Coach Hudspeth and that football program. He's got them well improved. Don't get me wrong. That's a very good competitive football team. But again, there's a difference between SEC talent and Sun Belt talent.
You're right.
2 weeks, we get a bye. Ole Miss gets a break on September the 20th, and they come back to play at what they're calling the Chucky Mullins Memorial Game against the Memphis Tigers on September the 27th. They've unveiled a new helmet that they're going to wear for that game. They're going to put the number 38 on the side of the helmet
that's a nice
that
touch.
game. After we play Memphis at home in Oxford for the first time since 2011 against the Alabama Crimson Tide. We played the last 2 games in Tuscaloosa. Finally, it comes back to Oxford.
Yeah.
Conference realignment kind of screwed things up with that.
Yeah, it did. Y'all had to go to Tuscaloosa twice. That's rough business. That's going to be a good game for you guys. Like you and I were talking off camera. I couldn't predict that one. That's going to be a toss-up game. I mean, any game Bama plays in, they're going to be probably a favorite.
Conference realignment thwarted the start of the Texas A&M series. This will be the first year that the Rebels have to travel to College Station.
That's going to be fun. I'm excited to see how Bo Wallace and that offense, but particularly that offensive line, holds up against that 12th man.
Then the Rebels come back home on October the 18th against the Volunteers of Tennessee. Butch Jones's football team comes to Oxford, and over the last couple of times Tennessee has come to Oxford, it's been rough. They won in 2004. They came back to Oxford in 2009, and it really wasn't a great football game for Tennessee then. First time since 2010 that Ole Miss will play Tennessee.
Yeah, that's going to be a good game. Butch Jones has that volunteer bunch really believing over
They
there.
had a great recruiting class last season, there's going to be a lot of youth at Tennessee.
They also took down South Carolina at home last year, which was a great game to watch.
Tennessee almost took down Georgia, too, in a thriller.
They did. That was a great game.
October the 25th, here in Baton Rouge, in this stadium, against LSU. I think the only thing here that Ole Miss can take a breath of is we don't know what kind of LSU team is going to show up. There's a lot of youth on offense for LSU. It's probably not going to be a dominant LSU football team, but it should be a great game nonetheless.
Oh, it's going to be a classic. We mentioned last week that every game Miles has coached against Ole Miss, it's been a classic, regardless if it was Houston or Hugh Freeze. And this building's going to be rocking for that revenge game, I'll tell you that much.
Homecoming here at LSU.
Oh,
yeah.
Night, you guys are going to be hitting a wall of sound.
Ole Miss comes back home on November the 1st to take on the national runner-up from last season, the Auburn Tigers. Ole Miss looking for a little bit of revenge against Auburn from last season. It wasn't a really good football game for Ole Miss in Jordan-Hare last season.
It wasn't a pretty game in Jordan-Hare last season, but let's be honest real quick. Last year, did Auburn play a pretty game in Jordan-Hare last year?
They never played a pretty game all year last year.
No, they didn't. But,
they found ways to win, and that's what you need to do in the Southeastern Conference.
That's what the good teams do. But y'all actually had an opportunity to win that game had y'all not shot yourselves in the foot.
November the 8th against Presbyterian.
Who?
Exactly. We won't talk about Presbyterian too much, only because we don't know much about Presbyterian.
Not to slate Presbyterian. Y'all are just unknown.
Bye week on November the 15th, and then November the 22nd, the game returns to Fayetteville against the Razorbacks of Arkansas. We don't know what kind of team Brett Bielema is going to have this season after an 0-8 disaster in conference play last year in Arkansas. Battle for the Golden Egg closes out the season, senior night on November the 29th against Mississippi State. Last season, It was a great football game. Looking at it from an objective point of view, Ole Miss had no business losing that football game. Give credit to Mississippi State, though. They came out ready to play.
They did. They came out ready to play, but this time y'all get them in the vault. The vault's going to be nuts. That's going to be a revenge game for you guys, and I guarantee you Bo Wallace in his last game at the vault is going to want to avenge that fumble at the 2-yard line.
Thoughts on how the schedule shapes up? Ole Miss over under 8 games by Las Vegas.
That sounds about right. I mean, you guys won, what, 9 or 10 games last season?
We won, it was 8 games last year, including the bowl game.
Y'all won 8, including the bowl game. Honestly, y'all could win 8 or 9 again this year. I mean, the schedule sets up nicely for you guys. I mean, Boise isn't what they used to be, but then again,
they are going to be competitive. It's not going to be an easy game for Ole Miss, but they are bringing in a new head coach.
Absolutely.
They've lost a lot of talent, but they're going to be ready to play in the Georgia Dome.
And they always seem to get geared up for that one big SEC team that they play every year. A couple years ago it was Georgia. This year it's you guys. But I think y'all can handle that well, particularly with the offense that you guys run. Vandy's Vandy. They're not the same without Coach Franklin there anymore.
No James Franklin, but apparently from the reports that I've read, the cupboard is not bare in Nashville.
No, they had some very talented freshmen last year that gave you guys fits until Jeff Scott reeled off a 70-yarder for a touchdown to clinch the game.
Problem spots for Ole Miss in this schedule.
Well, Auburn at the Vaught. It's going to be a tough game. It's going to be very competitive. LSU in this building, that's always a great game. That could be a coin flip, and then Bama coming to the Vaught as well. Those are y'all's 3 big games next season. Tennessee, I think y'all can take care of. A&M without Johnny Manziel. If they play the same amount of defense that they did this year as they did last year, it could get ugly for the Aggies. I mean, the way y'all's schedule sets up, easily 9 wins.
I think 9 wins is perfectly attainable. I think, in my opinion, the problem spots are going to be Alabama, LSU, and either Texas A&M is going to be a hard game. Tennessee is not going to be a pushover football program like they were in the past.
No one in the SEC is.
Auburn is going to be a tough one. There's a lot of tough football games for Ole Miss. It's not an easy schedule by any stretch of the means, but with 10 returning starters on defense, that is probably going to be one of the top talented defenses in the conference, and that's the entire conference. They should help Ole Miss stay in pretty much all of these football games. Another little tidbit, I know it's way too early to talk national championship. Las Vegas put out odds. Bovada, I believe, put out odds as to where each team's going to stack up in the national title picture. Ole Miss, surprisingly, 40-1.
Could be worse.
Could be better, but
True.
They're not at that level yet.
No way.
Chris, I know it was a little hard for you to talk about the red and blue, but in your case, red and blue makes
purple.
And we're in Baton Rouge. It's okay.
It all connects at some point.
It's I guess the 7th circle of SEC health when it comes to the Ole Miss Rebels.
So is Nick Saban's house the first ring at the center?
Yeah, and I think everything just branches out. No offense to Coach Saban.
We did love the Luigi hat on ESPN, by the way. That was
hysterical. But, you know, in the words of Nick Saban, I know we're getting off topic here, but in the words of Nick Saban, who thinks of this stuff? For all of us at the Sports Report, thank you to everybody behind the scenes. Again, there's not many of you, but you know who you are. From Baton Rouge, I'm Paul. He's Chris. And from enemy territory in this preview, this has been another episode of the Sports Report.
And you didn't melt.